Hey everybody, so today I'm going to show how to install Windows Server 2012 R2 using Hyper-V so I can install it here on my desktop computer. So what I've done is I've downloaded a copy of the ISO from the Windows Evaluation Center, and I'm going to go ahead and use Hyper-V like we installed in a previous video. So I'm just going to hit the start square down here, start typing in Hyper-V, there it is, bring that up, all right. And there's that test machine Windows 10 that I built last time, but this time we're going to do a Windows Server. So, and I'll put the link to the eval section, download center in the comments. But anyway, so click on your host machine here and say new virtual machine, and the wizard will start. So I'll go ahead and hit next for the wizard. I'll go ahead and give this a name. I'll call it SRV 2012, and I'll do A because I may do more than one of these. I'll also say to store it in a different location. Let me browse. I've got a virtual machine folder here in my C drive, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave it there on the root of my virtual machine folder that we did in the previous video. So I'll select that, and then I'll go ahead and click next. I'll go ahead and do a generation 2 just so it has some UEFI and newer features. And I'll click next. For memory, I'll let it use dynamic, but I'll give it 4096. So we'll give it about 4 gigs of RAM there for startup, so it starts pretty quick, and it can use dynamic because I don't have a ton of RAM on this machine. So I'll say next. For our switches, let's see, we won't connect one right now. What we'll do is we'll go do an internal switch for this one after we're done. So we won't connect the network. I'll hit next. I'll knock it down to 100 gigs hard drive here. We'll leave everything else. It's going to install it in that folder we chose. The hard drive itself name is fine. I'll go ahead and hit next there. And I'll say for operating system, I want to use an ISO, so I'll click on the second option there, and then I'll browse to my desktop where I have that Server 2012 eval edition that I downloaded, and there it is, this eval edition here. So we'll click on that and hit open, and then I'll say next on this, and it's got all my choices that we're going to use here. And so I'll say finish, and it'll start building everything. All right, so it's got it all configured there. So also said, you know, we would do a network later. So in the last one, I said I wanted to do an external, so that way I could RDP to it from this machine, etc. For my server, maybe I want to just do an internal network. So let's go back into Hyper-V's, virtual switch manager here. And let's create an internal switch. So we'll say internal switch here. We'll say create a new switch, and we'll just call this one internal switch. And I'll leave everything else default. It's already marked internal here. I don't need to segregate networks or anything, so I'll just apply that, and I'll hit OK. So now let me go ahead and put this one on that internal. So I'll right-click here and say Settings. And then we'll go to network adapter down here, and then I'll change it. So now my internal switch shows here as a choice. So we'll put internal. I'll apply that and hit OK. And now I'm going to go ahead and just right click and start this thing up. Start it. And I'm going to go ahead and right click again on it and connect to it so we can see what's happening in here. All right, so we have to hit a key. We have to click in there and hit a key to boot. And I may have missed it, so I'm going to go ahead and hit Action up there, Control-Alt-Delete, click in there, and then hit the space bar so it starts going. And let me make this window a little smaller if I can. Won't let me really adjust the size here, so we'll leave it there. That's fine. So we'll just hit Next here, Install now. We want to go ahead and install this thing. All right, so we have a couple different choices here. We have standard and data center. And then if you scroll over a little bit, you have the core and the GUI. So I'll do a core in a later video. So this time we're going to do the GUI. So we're going to click on data center and a GUI, 64-bit. We'll hit next. It's got your terms here, so I'll say accept. And for eval, you can't really use this in production. So this is really just for testing. So I'll hit next on this. And here's your two choices. Upgrade is if you're doing some type of in-place upgrade, and I'll do one of those also in a later video, but right now we're just going to install Windows only, the bottom choice, and we're going to put it on that 100 gigs that I carved out for it, and so we'll say next. All right, so it's going to go through the install files here, and this takes a few minutes, so I'll go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll come back when it's finishing up. Okay, it looks like it's finished up, so it's going to its restart now that was required after it's finished. So let's let it do that. Let me pause again until it comes back up here. All right, so the reboot finished, and first screen it comes up to is to set your administrator password. So set a good strong password here. Let me go ahead and set up my super secret password, and I'll hit the finish button down here at the bottom. All right, and then we're ready to go. It's got its time here. It's ready to hit Control-Alt-Delete to sign in. So I'll do that. It'll sign me in here as administrator. And this first boot, sometimes it's a little slower, but while it builds your profile, but that's it. So Server Manager comes up. And we're ready to go here. So we can add roles, we can do whatever we need to do. So in future videos, I'll do some configuration, and we'll add some server roles and do some things with it. But that's it. Thanks a lot.